Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is the place where we take some of the most specialized source material you can find, and we really try to break it down.
Into something you can actually use, yeah.
Exactly. And today, we're diving into some, I would say, highly demanding material. It's about the fundamental claims of the Unification Church.
Right. And we're drawing from a really specific source, excerpts from Reverend Sun Myung Moon's 1979 speech, Unification Church and Heavenly Law.
A pivotal speech.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this whole deep dive is really about the structural logic of it all. It's not just presenting beliefs. It's laying out this comprehensive argument for a necessary global system.
And the timing is key, right?
The timing is fascinating. It was delivered March 1st, 1979. That date was chosen very intentionally. It marks the 60th anniversary of the Great Korean Independence Movement.
Wow, okay, so that context is vital. Right from the start, the mission is being framed inside this idea of national destiny, historical justice even.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, listening, we have three big areas we need to dissect today. First, the core argument for why, a single religion must exist.
And prevail.
Second, the really sharp critique leveled against America back in 1979. And finally, this incredibly demanding procedure. They call it the Heavenly Law.
Our mission is to take those three pieces and show how they fit together. It's not just a set of rules, it's an interlocking philosophical structure. We want to understand the mechanism.
Okay, let's unpack this. So the unification perspective. It starts with an assertion that it sets the bar incredibly high.
It does.
If there is only one God, then logically there can only be one church teaching the one correct way.
And that institution, by definition, has to stand above any single country, any government.
So that's the central idea, the absolute necessity of one standard that transcends culture.
Exactly. And the source material is, in one way, surprisingly generous. It says, all major religions, they contain truth. But they're limited.
How so?
They teach from their own perspective, centered on their own history, their own culture, not God's.
I see. So if God is the ultimate grader.
He's grading them on his single objective standard, not on, how long they've been around or their own merits.
And in that grading, only one can get the top mark.
100%. Precisely. Anything less is, by definition, just falling short of God's complete ideal.
And this connects to a larger idea, like a sort of Darwinian analogy.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Just as a greater religion is meant to absorb a lesser one, a higher civilization will absorb a lesser culture. The standard is always pushing toward unity.
Okay, so if unity and consistency are the measures, then the assessment of America in 1979 becomes really provocative.
Oh, absolutely.
The speech says America is great, yes, but its greatness isn't from the moral fiber of its people.
No, it's almost entirely because of what they know, their science, their technology. The standard is intellectual, not spiritual.
That is a stinging diagnosis.
It is. The source is basically saying America's power is on a shaky foundation because the people themselves are failing to live up to that potential.
And points to two specific failure points.
Two critical ones. First, a loss of quality in human interaction. It cites racial conflict as the main example, where people cannot even mix with each other.
So the unity is just theoretical.
Exactly. And that makes their intellectual standard unstable.
And the second failure point seems to be about convenience, a kind of crumbling of standards in personal life.
That's a huge piece of it. The source notes that even Christians were uncertain about the standard of love they were meant to be following.
And families.
Families were failing because commitment felt inconvenient. It was easier to just abandon homes and families. The underlying problem is that the highest ideals, love, faith, they've become a matter of personal preference.
Instead of an unshakable law.
Right. And the source makes this crucial point. People stop going to church because they see no benefit there.
Which reinforces the whole argument that the established institutions were failing to deliver something compelling, something of high value.
That's the setup. This failure creates the vacuum, the need for a new standard of truth. One so robust that it just eliminates convenience from the equation entirely.
So let's define that truth. What does the source say truth has to be?
It has to be absolutely consistent, no contradictions. This speech uses these simple analogies like, a person can't pursue two different goals at once.
Or your body parts have to work together.
Right. And a true religious principle has to work for everyone, Orientals, Westerners, and it must be the same today as it was 1,000 years ago.
Like the ideal of a man and women loving each other in harmony, that's consistent across time.
Exactly. And the truth has to be comprehensive. If it's just about my personal salvation, but it ignores my family or society, it's incomplete. It's not harmonious.
So it has to work on both the individual and the family level at the same time.
Yes. And this leads to this big structural diagnosis of history. It critiques how human civilization moved from godism to humanism and then...
Degenerated into materialism. That's a powerful critique of the timeline.
It is. And the argument is that the whole sequence is inverted. The correct channel has to flow from God to man to material things.
Not the other way around.
Never. When material is put above man or man is put above God, people inevitably feel incomplete, dissatisfied. No amount of money or stuff can fill that spiritual vacuum.
I see how that connects right back to the critique of 1979 America.
Precisely. A society built on knowledge, on material capabilities, but lacking that ultimate God-centered standard.
And this reordering of values. This leads to one of the most radical ideas in the speech.
The revolutionary concept of possession.
Let's talk about that. Because the source claims that war, conflict, it all comes from a wrong concept of possession.
The belief that things belong only to me.
So the solution is...
What?
A radical dedication of ownership?
That's it. It's stated very explicitly. Americans must realize America belongs to the world and ultimately to God. Individual ownership is just temporary stewardship.
Okay, unpack that for us. It uses the example of a notebook. If I own a notebook, how does that ownership flow upwards?
The structure flows.
Yeah.
You, the individual, then America, then the world, and finally, God. But you're asked to reverse your thinking.
Okay.
If you willingly give that notebook for the use of the whole, for all of mankind and God, the source claims the notebook itself becomes happier. Its value goes up because it's serving its highest purpose.
So it's not about giving things up, it's about dedicating them to a higher use.
Exactly. You don't lose. Paradoxically, the claim is you come to possess the world and God himself. It's a total reversal of standard economic thinking.
So there's a vertical sequence of blessing then.
Yes, you dedicate something to the whole, God uses it, and then blesses the world, the nation, and finally you, the individual. The original giver gets the greatest value back.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because if this concept is universally applied,
that everything belongs to God and is for the world's benefit.
The source says there would be no reason for communism and democracy to fight.
It tries to solve that ideological conflict by just elevating the standard of ownership above both systems. If the highest purpose of wealth is serving God, then who controls it, the state or the individual, becomes a secondary question.
That sets the stage perfectly for what's required of the individual. If the external world needs this restructuring, then the internal self must need an equally demanding system.
Which brings us to the core requirements of heavenly law.
Right.
And we have to be really clear here. Love is the goal. It's the end product. But to make sure that love is pure, objective, you have to strictly observe the procedure.
The path laid out in the divine principle.
Which is the heavenly law. It's just the codified process for achieving God's ideal.
And it's not optional. To return to God, an individual has to pass through 3 successive judgments. Walk us through those.
Okay, so the journey starts at the word. Step 1 is the judgment of words. The teaching itself judges you.
So the divine principle.
Yes. Whether you know every detail or not, that standard now exists, and you're measured against it.
That's the intellectual test. What's step 2?
Step 2 is the judgment of character or personality. This is the judgment of reality.
This is where the rubber meets the road.
Completely. It means living according to the word and proving it in practice. And this step has profound consequences.
I remember the source being pretty stark about this. It says, if you fail to practice the law, the person who did practice it becomes your judge.
It is extremely severe. It means that everyone, from angels down to Satan, will blame you for knowingly failing. The standard isn't an abstract teaching anymore. It's the living example of someone who succeeded.
And only after those 2 difficult steps, the intellectual and the physical, is the 3rd step passed, the judgment of heart.
And it's passed automatically, because the heart isn't developed intellectually, it's formed in difficult situations.
Hardship.
Yes. The source specifically mentions witnessing and fundraising under persecution. That's what creates the depth of heart required.
So, with that goal established, how does the organization make sure members are ready for it? What are the mandatory requirements?
First, there's the foundational training course. Every single member has to complete it within 6 months of joining.
The 2-day, the 7-day.
The 21-day and the 40-day. That's the pure instruction, the knowledge base.
But the instruction isn't enough. They have to live it. Which brings us to the recreation course. What are they recreating?
They are recreating the entire course of creation as God intended, and it has two imperative stages. First, they have to recreate material.
Which is represented by fundraising.
Explicitly. Since all material belongs to God and the world, going out, earning funds, and dedicating them to the whole, that's the practical application of that revolutionary ownership idea. It's aligning material back into that correct God-man material flow.
That puts a theological weight on fundraising that's way beyond just paying the bill.
It's a mandatory spiritual exercise. And the second stage is to take God's position, to act as a parent and make God's heart.
Embodying that selfless love.
Yes. And every single stage of this course must be fulfilled. No skipping.
And central to all of this, on the ground, is the home church. It's called mandatory, heavenly law. Why is that local organization so important?
Because the home church is how spiritual reality gets mapped onto the physical world. The source claims that successfully organizing a home church on earth, it actually establishes the organization of the spirit world.
Wow.
It determines your identity and your spiritual tribe in the afterlife. It's the practical mechanism for fulfilling the law on earth.
So the law is comprehensive, it's mandated, and it's universal. You can't pick and choose.
You can't. And grudgingly following it is considered just as bad as not doing it at all. The heart is missing. The source even says that the person speaking the law, Reverend himself, has to come under it.
Proving its universal application from the top down.
Exactly.
So to review the structure we've built for you, it starts with this pursuit of unity under a single 100% standard. That requires a radical realignment of how we see possession dedicating everything to God and the whole.
And the path to get there, to the end product of true love, is this strict, non-negotiable process of heavenly law, the judgments of word, reality, and heart.
Achieved through these mandatory courses and just ceaseless service.
And that brings us to the final and maybe the most counterintuitive insight about the work itself. The source asks, is this mission dependent on worldly success?
And the answer is?
The answer is no. It states that even if the church suddenly got billions of dollars, or if every person on earth joined tomorrow, the work would still be mandatory, ceaseless.
So the purpose is not financial victory. It's not about the numbers.
No, the law is not fulfilled by success markers. The work is mandatory as long as it's unfinished, which means until everyone universally knows and lives this way of life, the endless work is the law.
That makes the process the entire point, totally independent of the outcome. So you have to ask yourself, if you find happiness by dedicating your life and possessions to the whole, is that process of dedication what makes the happiness real? Or is the benefit, this possession of God, just a convenient outcome for following the rule?
Something to consider as you reconcile the idea of ceaseless mandatory work with the promise of ultimate unity.